All right, welcome back for another episode of Chasing Ghosts. This is the video series where I talk about those hard to find, those impossible to find comics, those things you gotta really do some research, dig, hunt, search, scour the internets, hit every shop, show, place you can think of to go and find some of these books because these are not easy to find comic books. Whether they be determined to be ghosts or just hard to find, these are things you just don't see on your day to day runs or when you're just quickly browsing the internet. A lot of times, you really have to get lucky to find one of these books. Now, hopefully you're enjoying this series as well as everything else here on the channel. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Please like, subscribe, hit the alert button so you don't miss anything. Keep telling your friends so we can keep growing the channel. And if you want to see what books I'm talking about this week, just hang on for a few seconds after the intro and I will be right back. All right, we're just going to jump right into it. And the first couple of books I want to look at are these Young Avengers variants. Now, not this is not the first volume of Young Avengers. This is volume 2 of the series with a whole different lineup. We've got America Chavez, you got Young Loki, and and a couple of the characters from the first one too, with like Kate Bishop and you know the twins. But these books outside of number 1, this is issue 2. This is a 1 in 50 that came out in 2013. For whatever reason, there was no high incentive ratio for issue 1. So the best you can really do variant wise for issue 1, I think, is the second print of the Brian Lee O'Malley cover. I think is probably the hardest to find of those. But as far as incentive variants go, issue 2 had a 1 in 50. Now, the print run was solid number, 43,000 thereabouts, which is going to give our 1 in 50 only about 871 potential copies. Again, these are estimates based off of numbers, provided like on Comicron, and then you do the basic math of 1 in 50, and that's where we kind of get our estimates here. These are not concrete numbers, just our best guess based on the information available to us. In the census, however, right now in the CGC census, there are 24 copies. You got 29 eights, 3 9/6s, and a single 9/4 for this particular issue. And this issue does all right as far as what's sold recently. Raw copies of this particular 1 in 50 has sold for $125 with 29 bids back in April. And then there was a buy it now for over $150 back in March. So it's been a while since one has sold, but a couple of raw copies selling in that kind of $125 to $150 range is not too bad considering it's a 1 in 50 ratio. So that's almost triple ratio as we look at it. And granted, this book is almost 10 years old now. It's coming out in February 2013. So it's been around for a while. And with less than 1,000 copies, these are getting tougher and tougher. But that all said, there are still copies to be had if you are hunting them. So if you were to go look online right now, you can find copies. Granted, they're not cheap. Raw copies still looking for at least $140 thereabouts. And then a 9/8, about $1,000. $1,000 in 9/8 and a 9/6. It seems pretty cheap by comparison, all the way down to $268. That said, there's still higher prices than I'd be personally willing to pay, but I'm just looking at the disparity between 9/6 and 9/8. I don't think it should be that great. However you want to figure it, maybe the 9/8 shouldn't be that expensive. Maybe the 9/6 should be more expensive. I don't know. But personally, I don't think there should be that much of a disparity between those two grades because they are very, very close, realistically. Most people, including myself, wouldn't be able to eyeball the difference between a 9/6 and a 9/8 just by looking at covers. Just looking at a raw copy in hand, you most likely wouldn't be able to tell the difference. I'm just saying. But that said, that's our first issue here, issue 2 of this Young Avengers series, and we're going to do a couple more because there are a couple more. So screw it. Let's take a look. Issue 3 also had a 1 in 50. A little bit of a different style. I think this is Trad Moore that might have done this one. I like the logo change, how they make it a little bit different than the normal, trade dress there. Like I said, this is March of 2013 and also a 1 in 50. So with a estimated print run of about 38,000, dropping a bit, the incentive drops a bit as well to under 800 at possibly 769 copies, which isn't a lot. Definitely not a lot. And when we look in the census, there's a lot less submitted of this one as well. Only 4 All are 9/8, but only 4 in the CGC census for this issue 3 of Young Avengers number 3, volume 2. Copies of this one, as far as what sold recently, it sells much a lot cheaper than issue 2 for whatever reason. Maybe it's just the cover art. The people prefer issue 2, which I think was at a Hans maybe. Uh, but this issue 3 can sell for about $50. I mean, that first one, March 28th, $50 buy it now. March 20th, it's a $29 buy it now, but with the UK shipping of almost another $28, that's basically another $50 book if you're buying it here stateside. So let's just call this about a $50 raw, selling about ratio way back in March for both of those. No sales more recent than that I don't think I could dig up. I just like grabbing examples. So that's what we got as far as the market goes, selling what's out there available. There are still copies to be had. Granted, those copies are more in the $70 to $80 range for raw, and then a 9/8 is looking for $300 right now if you were to go shopping. Price is still a little steep for my taste, but it's still a pretty cool book. I wouldn't mind having this if it were on the cheaper side, but with these prices, I'm probably going to let this one lie personally. Then we're going to jump to issue 4. Let's go to the next issue because they kept up the 1 in 50, so we're going to keep rolling through them. Here's the next one. This is for issue 4. The next month, this is from April of 2013. Another 1 in 50. Print run, as you might have guessed, dips again down to 34,000. So this incentive dips down to possibly 687 copies. Not surprisingly, there are only 2 copies in the census for this one, with a single 9/8 and a 9/4, and that's it. Now, as this one is print runs going down or getting a little tougher to find, we don't have any sold copies recently for this one for us to check what the market is. I would be curious to see if this one, just based on lower print run numbers, would be higher than issue 3 or lower. But who knows right now, because no copies have sold within the last couple of months that we could do that quick comparison. But if you want to look at what's available copies are more expensive. Whereas the other issue 3 was looking at like that, what's it, like $60 to $80? Raw copies here are asking 100 to 150. So the asking price is a little bit steeper here on issue 4 for this 1 in 50. So a little tougher. And we got one more. As you might guess, we're going to stick for one more. Issue 5 also has yet another 1 in 50. This Jim Chung. It's pretty cool. I like this cover. He's got like a whole Breakfast Club kind of vibe. I mean, it's not a Breakfast Club homage, but it gives me that kind of vibe with all of them kind of crowded together. But this is from May of 2013. Also a 1 in 50. Print run dips again down to 32,000. So the incentive on this one dips only down to maybe 643. So pretty close to the last issue, but still a handful less than issue 4. So issue 5 has 0 copies in the CGC census. I couldn't find any copies in the census for this one, and only 1 sold too within the last 3 months, and it got a $100 back in March. $100 buy it now, free shipping for this 1 in 50. Yeah. But that said, if you wanted to get this one, unfortunately, this is our first book with no copies available right now. So there you go. Not going to be easy to find this one. Is this so far? If we go off the numbers, the estimated print run numbers, it looks like this would be the lowest printed and probably the toughest out of those Young Avengers Volume 2 1 in 50. So keep that in mind as well if you're out there hunting. That this might be a tougher one than the others. Now we're going to hop on to another series just because this book, there's a lot of copies of this book, but I want to talk about it for one reason, because it's a lower incentive for a book that we're going to cover after it. Plus, it's a really cool cover. This is the Daken Dark Wolverine #1 Delato cover. I dig it. I like it. I luckily found one while I was on vacation in Delaware. I keep joking about me going to the shore down in Delaware, but I found this book at a shop down in Delaware and I bought it. So that's where I got this 1 in 25 personally. This came out in September of 2010. 1 in 25 incentive variant. Healthy print run on this issue. So almost 50,000. So with a 1 in 25, that's going to make our incentive almost 2,000. So a little over 1,900 copies potentially for this one. So this one may not be that tough to track down. And it has a solid number in the census as well, with 90 copies in that CGC census. Granted, 50 or 9/8, 29 6s, and then a few others rounding out, those 90 copies that are currently in the census. There are multiple sales for this one with 2,000 copies. Delato is still a popular cover artist. This thing could sell for as cheap as $36. Best offer on $95. 9.6 has accepted a best offer on 250. So I didn't go and dig for the actual accepted prices on these. We get the idea, just broad strokes for our purposes here. And I just honestly just didn't have a lot of time this week, as I mentioned yesterday on Hidden Gems. I didn't go doing that extra level of detail. So apologies for me being a little lazy this week. That said, what's on the market for this one? If you're shopping for this one, as you might, like I said, it's a solid cover, and there are copies available. And yes, there are copies available. So if you wanted to get one though online, you're going to be paying up a little bit in that 80, 90, $120 range. It looks like. So even though somebody snuck one, as you might say, for that $36 earlier in the sold copies, the asking prices are a little bit steeper if you were looking to shop right now. So who knows? Be patient. Don't go pay and market for a lot of stuff. Just be patient. Hopefully you get lucky. You'll find your copy. Just, if you will it, it shall happen. No. Oh, no, it's if you will it, it is no dream. Sorry, doing a little Big Lebowski. I don't know why that popped in my head, but it did. That said, the reason why I wanted to talk about this book again is to kind of lead into the fact that this issue 1 also had a higher incentive ratio. This was a 1 in 25. It also had a 1 in 75. Marco Djurdovic, if I'm saying his name right, Djurdovic. Pretty cool cover. I dig it. You got the Juggernaut, you got Sinister, you got the Blob, Magneto. A lot of villains here on this 1 in 75 incentive. Also, again, September 2010. So it's the same issue, same incentive. So with that print run, you can guess the incentive is only going to be 650 copies based off of that 48,000 print run. So a lot less copies of the 1 in 75 than the 1 in 25. Makes sense, right? If the ratios work, it makes sense that there's a lot less. That said, incentive in the CGC census, there are still a solid 51 copies of this one in the census. So I think a lot of people have subbed this book. 27 9/8s, 15 9/6s, and then a few others just to kind of fill that all out. There have been no sales of this one in particular lately for whatever reason, but there are a few on hand if you wanted to go shopping right now. Granted, they all seem to be graded. 9.4 asking 125, and a 9.6 asking almost 300, and then a 9.8 asking a solid $700 with 23 watchers too. So there's a lot of people keeping an eye on that one. Almost 24 people watching that at $700, which is kind of interesting. Now, this book, and the reason why I brought this book up, is part of what you might guess, something I really do like doing and covering. It is part of a connecting cover set, and we are going to move on with the connecting cover and pick up our next connecting bit, which is going to be this X23 number 1. As you can see how it just slides right in there to form this nice little larger image. This is also an incentive, high ratio incentive. This is also a 1 in 75 incentive variant, also from September of 2010. Marco Djurdovic, again, same artist, same cover image. It's going to grow because these are not the only two. We're going to keep this rolling. Estimated print run on this is close to the last, close to that Dakin at about 48,000. So this is also very close for the incentive at only 646 potential copies. In the census, there are still a decent number, 28, with 16 9/8s, 9.6s, and then a few others. This also has a 1 in 25 Delato, which I'm sure you guys all have known. I've covered it already on this series, so I'm not covering it again. That's the one where she's crouching. I have the lowest graded copy because it's an SS signed by Delato. It's a 5.5. That's my claim to fame. I have the lowest graded Delato 1 in 25 for this X23 number 1, but this is the 1 in 75 for that. So it is much tougher to find than the Delato. As gorgeous as the Delato is, this one's a lot tougher to find. No copies, again, have sold within the last 3 months, but there are a few on hand if you want to go shopping. They are not cheap. $1,200 raw, 9.6 asking $1,900. Well, starting bid at $1,900, and a 9.6 has a best offer asking price asking $3,000. So not cheap at all for this one. So keep that in mind if you are to go shopping. And as I mentioned, that's not it. These two together are not it. This cover grows. There's more. There's more to come with Generation Hope number 1. The X titles started off like with a lot of new titles during this month of September 2010. So we got a lot of incentive variants that kind of go together. So this Generation Hope Also has, Rogue, you got Shatterstar, you got Hope, obviously, Bishop, Cable, plenty of X characters to be shown here on these covers. I love a good connecting cover image. So as you might have noticed, another one in 75. Now this one didn't come out until November of 2010. I think this one probably got delayed for one reason or another, or maybe it was planned to come out 2 months later. I don't know, but a lot of times there's usually one title that gets delayed for reasons unknown. That said, the print run on this one's a little bit less at 37,000, so the incentive on this is just under 500 at 498 for this Generation Hope one. So this one could be tough with under 500 copies. CGC Census only has three 398s. They're all 98s, but there's only three graded. Copies have sold, surprisingly. I was surprised, at least, to find that 96s appear to be all the rage for this one. So even though they're not in the census, these copies have sold. I don't know. Maybe just delays in updating the census. I don't know. But that said, maybe it's filed under something else and I grabbed the wrong image. It's possible, but 96s have sold here 190, both in March. That looks like the same book. Maybe it had a failed sale and they sold it again. And then 125, they accepted a best offer earlier in March. That looks to be a different book, though. But the other two, the images look the same. So it looks like it could be the same book from the same seller. Like I said, maybe somehow the sale fell through. That said, there are still copies to be had of this one too if you want to go shopping. Granted, raw copies only, asking 75 up to 112 thereabouts. So it's not going to be an easy one to track down. And with a 1 in 75 ratio, it's not going to be cheap. I mean, but the cheapest price is asking ratio, and you got to pay $14 shipping out of Hungary. So all of these actually overseas, with the other two being from the UK. So none stateside, apparently, on the market right now. But we're going to keep going with this Jurdovic connecting cover set because, like I said, I like it. I think it's kind of interesting. And they're all high ratio incentive variants. And here's our next one, X-Men, but it's issue 3 of this X-Men title. This was, I think, the Vampire X-Men title from also, I think, September of 2010. Right? Yep, September 2010. Another 1 in 75 variant. Here you're getting more of the classic X characters on the cover here with Cyclops and Colossus Storm. Even get a Gambit thrown in there. And it being a main X-Men title, the print run's a bit higher at 66,000 plus. So the incentive is a little bit higher at under 900 copies at 887. And in the census, only about 31 copies with 1998s, 996s, and then a few others. Even though there's more copies to be had, none have sold recently. It's kind of surprising. And there are copies to be had, which I also find not as surprising, considering there's copies of the under 500. Why wouldn't there be copies of the 800, but 900? That said, it's still not cheap. Asking price is raw, $145. A 9.6 is only asking 150, so I might consider that over the raw personally. And then a 9.8 wants $500. I don't know. I'm still probably not buying it at these prices. I get it; it's a high incentive ratio, but this is generally a little bit higher than I like to play with my my money because I have a limited budget to go towards comics, and I like getting more for my my buck. This is my first choice. I like looking at these, but this is not at the top of my to-do list for 2022, which I did do a list that I got to get back to. And if you go check out the channel, you can see my wish list for 2022, and I'll see how many of those I've actually checked off. I think I got a couple, but anyway, we'll get back to that some other time. Let's keep this rolling because we're already almost 20 minutes in and I still got a few more books to cover. And we still got a few more books to connect to this connecting cover set. We've got 4, so let's get to issue 5 of the set. Wolverine. Yes, of course, we need to have a Wolverine book added to the list. This is Wolverine number 1. God knows what volume of Wolverine this is because they've had so many. Apart from the Punisher, I can't think of another character. Punisher, Moon Knight, Wolverine. Heck, even Spider-Man. Marvel has to stop restarting all these titles. I'm just sick of all the restarts. I can't keep track of anything. That said, September 2010, like most of these, 1 in 75. Pretty cool cover. Nightcrawler, Mystique, Sabretooth, and a couple of other fan favorites there. A healthy, I think this was the number 1 book for that month of September 2010. Over 100,000 copies of Wolverine number 1. So the incentive on this, even though it's a 1 in 75, is almost 1,400 copies. So decent number for this one. Like I said, I'm pretty sure this was the number 1 on the Comic-Con census for the month of September in 2010. In the census, there are a decent amount, 62 with 37 9.8s, 18 9.6s, and then a few others. copies sold on this particular Wolverine book, it sells for you 43.83. Apparently, is the price with 2 copies sold. Looks like the same seller. Maybe they had more than 1 copy. Maybe it was another fall through situation. Who knows? But 43.83 is the example sale with $17 shipping from the UK. So it's realistically a $60 sale on this one, which is still under ratio, surprisingly. And there are a couple of copies, not a ton, but a couple of copies out there with a $200 raw, and then $300 and $465 for 298s. So yeah, it's 298s out there. That top one being a My Comic Shop, so they're gonna actually have that little bit of a not commission. Well, I guess it's commission, a consignment charge. That's the word I was thinking of, though. Yeah, so a little bit extra if you're buying from My Comic Shop because of that reason, and just a healthy little or fun little nugget. If you see something on the eBay store, they usually have it on the My Comic Shop website. It's usually cheaper to buy it directly from them than on the eBay shop because eBay will charge even MCS fees. So, see a book that you really want, check out their site first because you might be able to get it directly from them for just a hair cheaper. That said, we got one more. Yes, one more in this huge connecting cover set. There it is, Uncanny X-Force. I believe it's also a #1. This was the first, I think, Uncanny X-Force volume. Pretty cool team with all the gray and black. I dug the costumes. I did like the lineup as well. I'm just going to leave up. This is, again, the huge cover image of all 6 together. But we're going to move it on into our individual book here. This is just for a quick little example. $1,400. There's a set of these up there all together. If you wanted to go and buy one, when I went to check, 24 watchers, $1,400 for all 6 of these together. I'm not sure if they're all near mint, but they're all there. If you want to get them all in one shot, $1,400. But this particular cover, like I said, Apocalypse, you got Archangel, Deadpool, Phantom X there, Psylocke, Havoc. Pretty cool cover. As all of them are. They're all pretty awesome Jurdovic covers. The last one is 75 for us to talk about here. This one was in October of 2010, so the month after. Decent print run as well, over 95,000. So the 1 in 75 incentive on this is still 1,275 potential copies, which is like that Wolverine. It's a decent number for such a high ratio book. That said, we have 91 copies in the census with a 9.9. There's actually a 9.9 of this 1 in 75 out there. But apart from that, there's 62 9.8s, 29 6s, and then a few others. So decent number of copies graded, and surprisingly a 9.9. You don't see that very often, especially on a high-end ratio incentive. Sold copy, a 9.6 sold for only $200. I say only, but I don't know. These high ratio incentives, as you saw some of the asking prices, that seems like a not too bad if you were shopping for one of these. And if you are still shopping and you didn't buy that one for $200, well, 9.8 is going to run you about $360. Raw copy can cost you about $100. And there's actually a few more. I just want to give you a little bit of a quick examples. So that will wrap up our Marco Jurdovic covers, those 1 in 75, which I thought were pretty cool. And yeah, I don't know. Tell me what you think if you're buying any of these. If you have any of these, any of the books I cover here, please tag me on Instagram. I love seeing it when people have these things in their collections. And with that, we're going to move on to our next book, and we're going to move away from Marvel. We're going to move away from these connecting covers. We're actually going to move away from the incentives for a minute, and we are going to go with what I don't usually like to cover because there's just so many, and I don't want to show favoritism or anything like that. But sometimes some of these are worth talking about because a couple of these grabbed the market by storm, and this was one which at the time, this Harley Quinn did. This Delato was all the rage for a short time. This was, I think, from Bulletproof Comics. This was an not incentive, store exclusive. I believe it was limited to 800 copies. Or actually, as the story goes, at least the story I've caught up and read, is it is limited to 1,000 copies, but 200 were damaged, and I don't think they were replaced. Who knows if any of this is true? So a lot of people quote this as only having 800 copies and not 1,000. Take that for what it's worth. August 2016. This is the pink labeled version. There are a couple of other versions of this particular cover. This is the lowest printed one, the hardest to find, this Delato, which is why it became the most popular, I guess, of those Harley Quinn store exclusives, of which there were Dozens. There were dozens of exclusives. This is Rebirth, one of Rebirth's most popular titles. There were a lot of Harley covers when this came out. But this one, like I said, at the time was very, very popular and very, very expensive. In the sense, as you can see, there are 385 copies graded for this book. 385 copies. So you can do that math. 243 of them are 9/8s and 90 of them are 9/6s out of the 800 of these that exist, or even 1,000. It is what it is. That's what's out there. Now, with all the rage that it was back in the day, none have sold recently for this particular book. And if you want to look at what the asking prices, they are nowhere near what they were back at its heyday. Right now, look, there's a 9/8 you can get for $100. Well, first starting bid at $100, and you can buy it now for $229 or $140 raw. This was hundreds of dollars at one time, hundreds of dollars for this book. I don't remember exact numbers, but this was a very expensive book, like I said, in its heyday. But that time has apparently passed. But I thought it was kind of a fun little look back to kind of check in and see where this thing was at. But there are copies in the market. People are trying to move away from theirs, I guess. So as limited as it might have been, none have sold, and people have thrown their copies out on the market to try to cash out, it looks like. Now, as I said, we moved away from the incentive variant. So we're going to get to another one. Now, this is not a store exclusive. This was a convention exclusive. I think this was C2E2. This is Black Boy Fly from 2017. Limited to 100. I mean, there's no concrete evidence of what the print run might be for this thing, but that's basically what I've gathered from things that I've seen, stories and information out there on the interwebs. So we'll just take it for what it is. It could be that limited. Regardless of if it is that limited, there are not a lot of copies for you to find. In the census, there are 34. And this was another one that was very, very expensive, very popular for a time when this came out. But there is a 10-0. There are 3 9/9s, 29/8s, and then a few others for that whole 34. So if there are only 100, 34 of them are graded, and 4 of them are 9/9 and higher, with one of them being a 10-0. As you might guess, though, there's not been a copy sold of this book recently. I mean, because if it did, it would be pretty expensive, I would think. But for now, we won't know because there are also no copies available. So no copies out there, none have sold. So God knows what this thing would go for these days. But I would guess that it would be pretty expensive. I think there was like some option news going with this. There was a lot of hype when this was coming out. So this was a very sought after book when it came out. That said, pretty cool wraparound cover as well. I just want to show you the back of it here so you can see the pretty cool wraparound there as well. Now, as we get into these weird, really hard to find limited things, some of these we're probably never going to see. Like I have not seen this one in person, live. Like I haven't seen a copy of this particular book. Just haven't come across one in my travels. Granted, I don't go to a lot of conventions, but that's your best shot at seeing one of these, I would think. That said, this next book is going to be another tough one for you to probably come across because this is another really hard to find exclusive. This is G.I. Joe, Real American Hero, issue 235. This was the final issue published by Devil's Due. Actually, I think this is G.I. Joe Elite number 36, but they basically wrapped this up. This was the 80th issue that they were publishing, where they continued the stories from G.I. Joe 155, the Marvel run. So that's where they got the 235 from. Devil's Due before it went to IDW, and then they started the numbering again like that. But this is the staff edition. This is an edition they gave away to staff at Devil's Due back in June of 2008. Little things that I've read on a couple of sites have spoken to that there were really not a lot of copies, like maybe 30, maybe 50. They basically had a couple for the publisher, Hasbro, and then basically the staff at Devil's Due. They just wanted to do something special for people who worked at the publisher when they were losing the license to G.I. Joe, which I think is a cool little thing. It reminds me a lot of that Star Wars Galaxy, the Imagineering variant. Now, that thing's got to be a couple $1,000 because, again, there's not a lot of copies. This was only given out to staff. Staff's not that huge. But with that said, there are a couple of this book in the census. There are 7, actually. 2 9/8s, 3 9/6s, looks like a 9/4, and a 9/0. And that is it. as you might guess, I don't even know why I have to put up these slides, but as you might guess, there's not that any sold for this particular book in the last couple of months. And yes, there's none listed for you to buy if you go hunting for this one either. So this is going to be one of those tough, impossible things. Just so limited. I mean, in what it is, it was given out to staff. You're just not going to be able to find it. And I love GI Joe. I mean, look at my hat. But I'll come to terms. I'm probably never getting this book. I mean, the cover's decent. It's not great. Kind of like the heads floating there, but it's just kind of a cool thing, and it's kind of fun little nugget, fun little thing to know about. That said, we covered a lot of books today, but as you saw as we were going through the list, many of them had copies to be had, including that huge connecting cover set of 6 altogether. So all of them will only be considered hard to find. Those are basically all those Young Avengers books, that Dark Wolverine #1, all of those connecting Jurdovic covers, even that Harley Quinn Bulletproof store variant, all had plenty of copies to be had, or maybe not plenty. They had a few. There was a few of each. So we'll just call those ones hard to find, in a lot of cases expensive. And that said, are potential ghosts, ones that either had one or none. Actually, I think all of these had no copies up right now. So no copies available for all 3 of these. The Young Avengers 5, 1 in 50 incentive, that C2E2 Black Boy Fly cover, that staff edition GI Joe from Devil's Due. All 3 of these, I think I feel comfortable in saying that they're ghosts, because there's no copies out there. And good luck. If you want to go hunting them, good luck finding them. Let me know what you think in the comments section. If you agree, disagree, what you think of some of these books. Like I said, if you have them, tag me on Instagram. I'd love to see them. I love seeing when the books are in people's collections, and not just images on a computer screen. Like, seeing them really in somebody's PC makes me smile a little bit, personally. That said, I'm still having fun doing this series. Hopefully you guys are still having fun going through these books with me. Again, most of these are books that I do not own. I will probably never own, but I love looking into this stuff. I love researching, digging into this stuff, which is why I like seeing when somebody has something that I don't have. Yes, I'll get a little jealous, but for the most part, I can be proud and happy for you. So that said, let's keep having fun. Let's keep this community, together. Make some suggestions, some books you might want to see here. I still got plenty of suggestions from a lot of you guys out there, things to cover on my to-do list. So when you make suggestions, I do actually take note and file it away to be done at some point. So with that all said, thanks again for stopping by. I appreciate you all, and I will see you guys soon with some more content. Later.